everyone, Matt here. Today's going to be a mini lesson on those Jimi Hendrix style licks and the fills, the rhythm slash lead playing at the same time that we all know and love. John Mayer uses them a lot, Stevie Ray uses them a lot, and Jimmy kind of was the one that popularized that type of playing and kind of hybridized the R&B licks that he learned, because that's a very much Curtis Mayfield type thing. Playing these major style bar chords, not in the way that we would play them, kind of like this or like this, but he would slide up and use the major pentatonic scale to embellish them and kind of get that lead and rhythm playing at the same time that we're so used to hearing about from guitarists all around. Well, in today's lesson, I also kind of wanted to get into the theory behind it, so don't be afraid if you're not really into that. I'm going to try to explain it in a way that's digestible to those of us that are still pretty new. And I myself play mostly by ear, so theory isn't really everything, right? But it's still good to know kind of the reasoning why it works and what's going on behind it, and I'm going to try to explain that today. So the example chord progression that we're going to use, again, from the song Bold as Love, it follows this pattern. It's an A major, E major, F sharp minor, and then D, right? So what's happening here in each chord, I'm going up to the what would be normally referred to by most as the C sharp minor pentatonic. Right, these notes right here. But I'm playing that over the E major chord. Why does this work? The reason it works is because you might often hear people say, oh, the major pentatonic and the minor pentatonic are the same scale. The reason I have an issue with that is because it's not the same scale. They might be the same notes in the same position, but the thing is, they're still different scales because you're emphasizing different notes, right? So even though this pattern here is the C sharp minor pentatonic, right? We're starting in the 9th fret, playing that pentatonic shape we know and love, that minor pentatonic shape. The thing is, when you play that over an E major chord, you emphasize the E, right? The E note. Because the C sharp minor pentatonic and the the major pentatonic have the same notes. The difference is you just emphasize the E note. Right? So by starting on the E note, you emphasize the chord tones, right? So when you're playing this E chord, the second chord in the chord progression, we'll just play the first two. So we'll go A. You can play C sharp minor pentatonic, which is really E major pentatonic, because of the same exact notes. So the key to figuring this type of thing out is just your basic scale knowledge. The way it can be derived for any major key. This song's in the key of A major, right? To figure out what minor pentatonic scale you can play over each major chord, you have to look for the 6th. And all that means, all you need to know to find the 6th, all numbers mean, is just what chord or what note comes in the major scale. So if we're playing the A major scale, right, our typical 3 notes per string pattern, all we need to do is count to 6. So A, 1, B is 2, C sharp is 3, D is 4, E is 5, and here is our 6th, which in this case is an F sharp minor. So what does that tell us? Well, that tells us over in this A chord, we can play the F sharp minor shape, even though it's really, in this context, we're finishing on A, so it's an A major pentatonic, if that makes sense. So that's where it kind of all comes from. So let's play slowly through the chord progression, and we'll take a look at the major scale position that corresponds with it's called the relative minor scale. E, F sharp minor, D. So for D, we come up to the B minor pentatonic box, which is really D major, right? Because let's try it again for D. So if we're playing the D major scale, starting on the A string, 6, and what note is this? It's a B, right? So that tells us that B minor is going to be used over that D chord. So let's play again. D. Right? All I'm doing there is playing the B minor scale. Right? This little shape. Except you finish on the D note instead of the B, right? This kind of can be confusing because we want to conflate scales as much as possible, but it can be confusing for new people on the guitar when you tell them, oh, well, the major scale, the major pentatonic and the minor pentatonic are the same thing. They're the same shape and they can be played in the same positions, but they are not the same scale. For example, if we're playing A Thrill Is Gone, I'm going to emphasize B, right? You're finishing on B because it's B is the key center, not D. Even though the notes are the same. So this can be used in any key, any chord progression really. Anytime you have a major chord, if you can figure out what minor pentatonic scale position correlates to that chord. For example, E. Let's find the sixth of E, starting on E. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. C sharp. That's right according to plan, right? Because C sharp, like we mentioned earlier, C sharp minor is really just E major. This seems a little bit weird, but that's where all of this stuff comes from, right? We're playing this E bar chord, but we're really moving it up into the land of the position of what we normally call C sharp minor. But since we end on the E note, and they're the same notes, and you're emphasizing E, you're really outlining that E chord. However, what you have to be careful is when you realize that C sharp minor contains all the same notes as E major, you have to be careful not to play a lick that you would play in C sharp minor, emphasizing the C sharp note over E. It doesn't sound as good when you do that. I'll give you an example. It sounds good, but you want to go for this resolution. Sounds much better because we're ending on E, and that's what our ear is drawn to as the one chord. I rambled a little longer than I wanted to, but I hope this gives you a little bit of insight in between the relation between the major pentatonic scale and the minor pentatonic scale, right? As you can hear, those are not the same thing, right? E minor versus E major. And of course, E major is the same thing as, what did we find out? 3, 4, 5, 6. C sharp minor. So that's where all of that stuff comes from, all the John Mayer. All that stuff is using the C sharp minor scale, but you're emphasizing the E note, which makes it E major.